So I think terminology is important here. The President's Excellence Fund is a fund that is established for NAU presidents and has been in existence for as long as the foundation has supported the university. So this is maybe third, fourth president that's had a President's Excellence Fund. And the fund is to be used at the discretion of the president for advancing the university. So I use it for events, I use it for travel, I use it for supporting student activities and travel. For example, one travel expenditure was to have the band go to the U of A game or to Texas when the football traveled to Texas. Those are expensive travels, and important that we have something there that we can use that we haven't planned for. I host retirement parties for key people that have left. Wally Covington was the last retirement party. Those funds are not things that I ask the foundation if they're okay with. I can spend that dollars because they're unrestricted using for advancing the university. I also did not reimburse the foundation. I chose to make a donation back to the foundation. Mm-hmm. And that's also, no one asked me for reimbursement. In fact, the foundation board is very supportive of advancing the university and have told me that they have no problem with using those dollars for whatever I want, particularly in this case for the transparency that I showed for the travel. Okay. I think we should go back to the audit report as well. The purpose of the travel was never questioned by the auditor. It was a business purpose. It wasn't personal. Mm-hmm. In fact, there was no personal time in that 8-day time period that we traveled at all. Travel globally is expensive, so the cost was not unusual, but the auditor did not find the documentation that they felt they needed, and therefore the audit report found a finding for lack of documentation. That is the case across campus. Mm-hmm. And that's why we have instilled training across campus, because we have an issue with the lack of understanding by our administrative staff who staff me, who plan my travel, and who prepare the documents about the information that was needed. And I also didn't understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the things we identified right away when reading the audit, is that it wasn't necessarily questioning the intention of the travel. It was questioning the documentation. Yeah. I'm curious to know, regarding the NAU Foundation and specifically the President's Excellence Fund that you mentioned. Yeah. When donors are making, and it is donor funded, am I correct?
Yes.
When donors are making those donations, they're aware that it's going directly to the Presidential Excellence Fund. Yes. It's not just like a general donation to the NAU Foundation.
No. It is unrestricted dollars for the President's Excellence or for greatest need. Those are the purposes for the donors.
And do you, off the top of your head, happen to know what the demographic of those donors are, where most of those donations are coming from?
Oh, I wouldn't know that because that's the foundation's business.
Okay.
I will tell you that I have made donations in the past there as well. I have donations across the board to various things on campus, scholarship funds that we've endowed, the Kit Recital Hall that we've named the Green Room, and the greatest need for our Giving Day and various things that I did in my early years when I was here before I gave significant amounts of money for endowment.
It seems that the trip that's being called into question most is the trip to Russia. And you mentioned that, as a result, or maybe just prior to the trip to Russia, there was a $1 million grant Can you kind of take me through what exactly you were doing in Russia and what benefits to the university happened as a result?
Our international staff has been working over the last several years to develop relationships in Russia. Most of the development was around the forestry program and our scientists' connection to the scientists in Siberia who have trees that are very similar, who have forest fires, who have climate change issues that are very similar to what we study here. We wanted on the international office side of things to make sure that we had opportunities for student exchanges and faculty exchanges. They have worked and had some issues with visa issues in that, and I'll get back to that because that was one issue. The other is our HRM program. The faculty have been in Sochi, back and forth. Galen, what's Galen's last name? He's serving now as associate dean, but he is one of the example faculty members who spent quite a bit of time in Sochi with the Sochi State University because their hotel and restaurant management program is really good, and their city is a tourism city because of the Olympics. So all the major hotel chains are there, and our students have opportunities. And they had gotten to a certain point that they also needed to advance to the next level. And we went to St. Petersburg because it is one of the top 10 places in the world to visit, so it's a big tourism area as well. So what did I do? I took the relationship to the next level. I signed an agreement with the university in St. Petersburg and met with the St. Petersburg Municipal Tourism Group about opportunities for exchanges and partnerships. In Moscow, we met with the U.S. Embassy and the ambassador, and we talked a lot about delays in processing visas and how difficult that was for our students and for the Russia students who wanted to study here, particularly in HRM or forestry. We then went to Siberia and opened a joint lab. It is a joint lab funded by the equivalent of NSF in Russia. And that lab is studying bark beetle and mite infestation in forests because the biosecurity of the world is around forest health. And we had a number of scientists there, including our own faculty member who is the co-PI on that grant. And then we went to Sochi and visited and signed agreements with the university there and also toured the hotels where our students were going to have internship opportunities, which they did last summer. So those were the kinds of things that we accomplished. The Sochi State president and her husband came back and spent I think 3 or 4 days here in December working with the HRM dean and faculty to solidify their partnership, and we have now an application for a $2.5 million grant to advance the forest health work. Finally, we visited some foundations, and our staff couldn't have gotten into those foundations without my presence. And the foundations are going to fund a language specialist to come here and offer Russian. The U.S. State Department has Russian language as one of their primary languages that all universities should offer, because of the importance of that country to world peace and our relationships. So I'm very excited about that. So the return on investment was great, but we traveled for about 60 hours over 8 days, and we went to St. Petersburg, Moscow, Siberia, back to Moscow, to Sochi, to Istanbul, to London, home, and that was a grueling time, but it was also a really good return on investment.
And
Galen Collins, yes, and he'll tell you about the importance of the relationship with HRM globally and how our students really need to be at Marriott hotels and Hyatt hotels and local hotels all around the world.
And to those that are questioning the choice to not fly coach, what would your response to that be?
I fly coach everywhere when I'm in the U.S. I've never flown with a business class ticket. But when I fly international and I have to get off the plane and the next day or even that same day give a speech or be in an important meeting, there's no way I can get my job done if I'm sitting for 26 hours and not sleeping. So I fly business, and my foundation has no problem with that.
Mm-hmm. I think another talking point that has just been on social media and among students and whatever, I think there's misconceptions about your husband traveling with you. Can you kind of take me through the process and the importance of including him in your travel?
Yeah. First off, the audit report also included the approval by the board when I was hired that my husband would travel with me when he had a purpose. He is an international student himself. We met when he was an international student on a college campus in Wisconsin. So he provides a lot of, I think, legitimacy to our efforts, particularly when we're in Asia. He reads the language, he can speak the language, and when we are in different parts of the world, people always ask him, you know, where was he born, how did he get to the U.S., what did he find as an international student. The other is that I travel with a very small group of people. Unlike other university presidents who may take additional staff, because he travels with me, he staffs me, and he keeps track of where we go. When we're in locales, he will drive and make sure that we can get more things done. He is not just a spouse, he is also an employee on the university. He runs the Boundaryless. He was a founder of the Boundaryless Lab and Innovation Lab. He's helped develop curriculum, he's co-taught courses, and he serves as an entrepreneur in residence in the business school. So he's very valuable in those meetings. When we travel domestically and we meet with donors or supporters of the university, it's quite common for a president to have a spouse there, because most of our donors also have their significant others with them. So it would be awkward for me to be alone with a couple asking them for support for the university. It's much more easy to have that conversation. So he serves as a spouse in those travels to help me with those kinds of engagements.